So my name's Justin Schaff, and I'm the founder and run our engineering team here at Patch My PC. A little background on our company: we develop a third-party patch management solution for Config Manager, and what we're going to be doing here is just kind of demoing you exactly what it looks like to set up, how we integrate into Config Manager, how that goes through the update process that you'd be accustomed to today, and pretty much how our solution would work. So what we have going on in this lab, we're actually running a tech preview, so we can even cover some of the new third-party software update catalog features that came out in this tech preview around categories. But I'm just going to jump in and kind of show you exactly what it looks like to get our product. So what we have going on is a pretty vanilla site. So we can see if we're looking at the all software updates within SCCM, we only have a couple different Microsoft updates. So we don't have any third-party patches that are actually integrated or configured today. So the first thing that you would do is on your top-level software update point within your Config Manager environment, you would either install our publishing utility. This is going to be the most full-featured experience for publishing our catalog, or you can also use the in-console publishing that was introduced in SCCM 1806, where you can come in and add our catalog. Now, there is a few limitations there around automation where it's not quite fully automated within the SCCM console today. So the majority of our customers we find at this point are using this publishing tool that I'm about to walk through and show you exactly how it works. So now that it's installed on our software update point, we'll go ahead and launch kind of the configuration here. So this is the tool that's going to essentially allow you to choose what third-party products that you want to publish into Config Manager as a software update, as well as what applications you want to automatically create from our tool that you can use for initial deployments of products. And we'll show you exactly what that looks like here. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is just go ahead and activate a license here. Now, if you were trying this out, you could simply download the MSI. It's only a couple meg, so it's extremely lightweight. Install that on your software update point, and you can simply check this box to use trial mode here. Now, the only prerequisite that we really have from our tool perspective is the code signing certificate. Now, we can see that we already have a certificate created that's going to be used to sign third-party updates. So whenever third-party updates are getting pushed into WSUS and SCCM, they do have to have a signing certificate that's used to ensure that clients are getting these updates from a trusted source. Now, what we noticed within our publishing tool here is that this was already configured. So this was actually a new improvement introduced in Config Manager 1806, where you can essentially say within your software update point, I'll show you where this setting is, we can say that we want SCCM to automatically create and manage the signing certificate used for third-party updates. So this makes it quite easy where you can just come in here and check a box and you pretty much have the certificate created, and this can also deploy the certificate to your client so that they automatically trust any third-party updates that are being published into your site. So there's also a new client setting that was introduced in the 1802 build of Config Manager where you can just go to your client settings and under software updates, you can simply choose the option to enable third-party updates. So by enabling the certificate on your software update point and the client setting, you don't have any external dependencies anymore, like group policy, for example, where you would have previously had to export the certificate that you're using and import it using a group policy. So now everything can natively be handled through Config Manager, making the prerequisite process quite easy here. So now that the prerequisites are done, next thing that we're going to do is choose what third-party products that we actually want to publish. So if we look at the tree view within our product here, you can notice that it's quite similar to what you would be accustomed to if you came into your software update point within Config Manager and looked at the Products tab. So for example, you would see things like all your different Microsoft products like Office, Windows 10, Windows 7, all the different products here. This is essentially the same concept, where you can choose what third-party updates you want our tool to automatically push into your SCCM environment. Now, we currently support about 300 and some odd updates across the 190 unique third-party products. So we do document all the products. You can even break in from a product level and see all the different versions and tracks that we may support within a specific product. Now, in addition to the products that we support today, we're always open to taking new product requests from our customers. So out of those 190 unique third-party products, if we kind of look at where we're tracking this, about 150 of those have actually come directly from customer requests. So as long as it meets the requirements, like it has a silent command line, a public download path, it usually takes us a couple weeks to evaluate new requests that we're getting for third-party applications from our customer base. Okay. So you can see that there's a long list here. So what we did to make this process easier is we have this option where we can click this scan database feature. What that's going to do is it's going to allow you to put in your config manager database, and it will allow us to query that database to determine, based on the products that we support within our catalog, how many of those are already actually out there and installed within your SCCM environment based on hardware inventory. So before we even start publishing third-party updates to your environment, you can actually pre-evaluate which ones are out there, and you can specifically enable products that we're detecting based on your client's hardware inventory. So you don't have to enable things like software inventory or star.exe. This would all be native in the hardware inventory that gets the installed applications, for example, and we simply match it to what we detect that we already support. You can also use this option and export this data. So if you're just evaluating our product and you just want to get an idea of how many apps you have, you can export that to a CVS file, load it into Power BI if you want to make something nice, and kind of see how many products you would actually benefit from before you even purchase our product, for example. So what we did here, we scanned the environment and we simply enabled everything that was already out there and installed. Now for time's sake, we're obviously not going to publish 300 and some updates, so we're going to go and be a little bit more selective here. So within here, I do want to cover a couple of the customizations that we can apply at the all products level. So this is one thing that we get a lot of feedback from customers about different actions that will make the update process better within their environment. So the first thing that we can do here from the all products level, so when we're looking at the all products level, these are common settings that we could recursively apply to every child product that we support. So let's say, for example, that you wanted to automatically close the application processes prior to a software update being installed. We can say, hey, we want to automatically close those apps just to make sure that we don't get pending restarts, for example. Now that's of course optional. If you just want to skip the update if we detect that's in use, that's also another option that we could apply here if we wanted. Okay. Next option, we can delete public desktop shortcuts. So for products like Chrome that always put a public desktop shortcut after the MSI update completes, we can say, hey, we want to clean that off. We don't want to put a shortcut for all users. And then the next option here that can be quite helpful is turning off self-updates. So for products that allow us to disable their updates using a common attribute like a registry value or turning off a scheduled task or a service, we'll automatically disable that self-update within that product. So for example, let's say you don't want Chrome and Java to auto-update themselves, you want to be more controlled over that, you could simply enable this, and whenever a update applies for those products from our solution, we'll ensure that the self-update feature within that product is turned off so that you can manage that throughout SCCM here. Okay. Let me just unzoom here. And this is probably my favorite feature. So we added this one about a month ago based on customer feedback, but we now give you the option. So I'm just going to copy a UNC path. This is going to be where I want to store all the installation logs for any software updates being applied on clients within my environment. So what this manage update logging option does is this will allow you to enable the logging of the actual vendor's installer. So I'm going to say for any update that supports logging, so obviously every MSI-based product update would, and the vast majority of EXE-based installers will also have a logging parameter. So any product that supports logging, you can say, I want to put all the install logs in a common location if you wanted to. Like this could be UNC or this could be local if you just wanted to save it on a local path. But we're basically saying all the logs, we're going to save them to this common UNC path. So in the event that an update ever fails, instead of just getting a generic 1603 exit code that would be returned back through the software updates feature, you can actually go say, hey, this is the computer, this is the product, and you can look at the log file to understand why the vendor's updater was actually failing on that device instead of just getting something very generic from the update. So we applied essentially these three options at the all products level. So now we're going to go ahead and scroll down to Chrome, and we're going to go ahead and choose Chrome 64-bit. This is one that we're actually going to enable within this environment for patching. Now, once we get into the product level, we've got a few additional options here. So we can add our own custom pre and post update scripts. So if you ever had some environment-specific configuration that you had to change for a product, you could use your own script and be as flexible as you want here. We'll do an example of that, but these are all optional, of course. You can also append your own command line, so maybe you have a product key that you need to add, or you can add an MST transform file if the patch is a MSI-based installer. Any questions up until this point?
No questions yet, I don't think.
All right, cool.
Wait, we do have one. Just
okay.
a second.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
How does that work?
So the question was, how does the logging work?
So, if you're going to run it on an internet-based client, so I guess if they're not on the corporate network, you specify UNC path that's internal only.
Good question.
Are there any kind of option?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you have a internet-facing client, obviously the log would not save to a UNC path unless you have VPN. This was actually some feedback we got a couple weeks ago. So I think what we're going to do is create a secondary option where you can say the primary location is going to be, let's say, a local path. By default, we usually put in CCM logs. And then we're going to have a secondary option to say, if we can reach this secondary path, let's also copy it to that common location in addition to the local path. So that's something that we heard the other week, and that's kind of our thoughts on how we're going to engineer the ability to fall back to support a UNC path, but we could still do it local in the event that it couldn't reach it. So that's a good question, and that's something that we're going to be looking at here.
Oh, we got a follow-up.
Sure.
Unrelated.
Oh, okay. Separate.
So one of my gripes with Shavlik,
yeah,
is their client actually, all of the different software vendors reaches out to the like to Adobe, Java, downloads it to them. So if you've got your management
yeah.
you need to wait list hundreds of routes. How does it work with?
Okay, I think I might have got that. Just clarify if I heard that right. So it sounded like with Shavlik Avanti, they have a separate product for each vendor within the WSUS products category. Is that what we were talking about?
But they've got different mirrors.
It's the content download.
Okay.
Yeah, so the content download that you were saying, the MP, if they have like, they don't allow internet browsing or access from one of the config manager site servers. Instead of having to whitelist all the different download mirrors, how do you handle that?
Yeah, good question. So there is a list of products where if you're doing full content, you will need to whitelist at least the domains that we're listing here that we get binaries from. So for EULA reasons, we generally cannot host or redistribute binaries for actual update installers. So you would need to enable and whitelist different domains that would be used for official product downloads from their site. So there's no way that we can get around that. We can't just go download binaries, host them, and say, hey, unless that's okay for certain products, right? So there would be a list of domains that you would have to whitelist.
Where's the download originating from? Is it from every client, or is it?
No, the download would simply come from either your software update point if you're using the end console publishing, okay, or wherever you have our publishing tool on. So it would only be a single server that would need access to those domains. Clients would of course get that from your distribution points.
Perfect.
Okay, so just an example of Chrome, we're going to configure a post-update script just to show you how if you did want to get a bit more customizable, you could do that. Essentially what this is doing is a PowerShell script setting a few different registry values that are setting the Google Chrome homepage to patchmypc.com, as well as a few different password management policies at the Chrome system level. So just an example of how you could potentially do that. You could also do things like, say, Java websites for the trusted list, things like that. So we can see that all the settings we did globally are applied to Chrome. And the next one we're going to do is Java for this demonstration. So we're going to do Java 8, 32-bit. So we have clients with these versions installed that will show you how these updates will kind of deploy on the client side of things. Now, what this tab does, the update rules, these are going to translate to products that are going to get published as a software update within Configuration Manager. So this would be used to patch outdated versions of existing products that are installed on devices, and it would use the same software updates features and scanning that you would be accustomed to from Microsoft updates. Now, one of the features that we introduced about 3-4 months ago is this new option called base installations. The idea of this is that in addition to just patching, we can also package up products that you can use to perform the initial installations using things like collection or task sequence deployments within your environment. And in addition to that, we also, by default, will keep those packages up to date. Now, when we initially released this 4 months ago, we did start by using the package model. So we used the legacy package model with the intent that we're going to switch to the app model. Now, what I'm going to be showing you today is an internal preview of the application model. So we're in the process. I expect within the next month, we'll fully have our product using the application model. And of course, you get a lot of benefits versus packages with things like detection methods, icons, a lot better experience in Software Center. So just keep that in mind. I am going to be demoing this using applications. This is an internal build, but we're very close to having a public preview available. So what we do, we jump over to the application rules tab, and these are going to be products that you can enable to actually create a application for that you can then use to deploy to your devices for clients that don't even have the application installed. So in addition to software updates with patching older versions, you can also maintain and install the latest version on all your devices using an application within SCCM. So just some basic settings here. You're going to choose your SMS provider. That's going to be how we can create the applications. We need to essentially know where to talk. And then you need to choose a root UNC path where you actually want to download the content. And this is, of course, where our deployment types are going to reference their content location. Now, by default, we will automatically update applications using the same application ID. So that's the default action. You can also choose when a new update comes out for a product, you would just want to create a brand new application. So the default behavior would be, let's say that Chrome 74 was created, Chrome 75 comes out, we'll automatically update the existing application, update the content on your DPs. So if you were referencing that application in, let's say, a task sequence, you're always going to be getting the latest version. You don't have to wait for your client to do a software update scan cycle and go through the normal patch process that you would get with our normal patches here. So there's a lot of value here in saving time in that initial kind of packaging and deployment here. So now that we have those settings configured, we can see that this is the exact same view that you would get. So essentially, what products do you want to create applications for in addition to updates? So that's what this tab is used for. Now we have this option where if you've already enabled products for software update publishing, we can simply click copy and automatically enable those same products for application creation. Now, just for time's sake here, I'm going to go ahead and start a publishing sync to start downloading the content for Chrome and Java, so we can just get that running in the background. But when we click copy to enable these applications that we enabled in updates, we can also see that all the custom actions that we applied within the update rules are also applied to applications. So even during the initial application installation that you were to perform in a task sequence or collection, you're going to get all the same options like disabling Chrome updates, setting the home page using a postscript. So it's really easy to kind of copy everything that you were doing in the previous update section that we had here. Yeah. Any questions while we're waiting for some of these updates to get published?
I just want to let you know we keep laughing because my buddy back here just ended up with a competing product, and we're just all this stuff is like, yep, don't do that either.
Yeah. It's kind of
That's what I was
funny.
thinking.
At user groups, we get a lot of buyer's remorse of people who may have just bought a different product. So I mean, yeah, cool. So next thing that we have here. Oh, is there another question?
Like, if you have an exchange program, like, okay, if you have a contract with a different.
Yeah, we actually do. Just send me a DM on Twitter or email me, justin@patchmypc.com. When we have customers coming from competing products, usually we do something a bit more than standard to try to get you to switch in those type of scenarios. Yeah, so shoot me an email and we'll figure out something for you for sure. Okay,
Cool.
so
Buyers remorse money back guarantee or something.
Yeah, hope you have like 90 days maybe to send it back and say it didn't work for us. Cool. So the sync schedule, this is going to be how often the publishing service is going to reach out, download our catalog, and determine whether there's any new updates for products that we enabled for update or application creation. If there are, it's going to automatically download and publish those updates based on your schedule. By default, we check every night. You can, of course, make this whatever works for you, weekly, monthly, patch Tuesday, hourly, disabled if you don't want it to happen automatically. And in addition to that, we can say if there are any new third-party updates that we detect that have been published based on your criteria, we can also automatically trigger a software update point sync in SCCM, so you don't have to wait for your normal scheduled sync, so that you can start seeing any new third-party updates right after they're published. You can start getting compliance data on them using things like ADRs. They basically will trigger that sync to happen right away. Now, from a release cadence, we're generally doing about 3 to 4 catalog updates per week. We almost always get updates out the same day that vendors release them. There's a few exceptions there, like if we only have 1 or 2 updates that are released in a specific day and they're not security related, depending on the criteria of those, it might be something that we push out to the following day's catalog update. But as an example here, we can see that this is one of the RSS feeds for today's catalog update, actually. So we can see that in today's update, there was a new Chrome, there was a new Firefox, there was a new Firefox ESR. We can see that some of those updates also had CVIDs. So if there's any CVIDs, we're going to list those out here as well, just so you can get that data. We also scan every binary through VirusTotal. So before we ever post a binary to our catalog, we're going to post it through VirusTotal. It's going to go through all those checks. And there's, of course, going to be a hash check to validate it's the original file that we used when we created this specific update. Okay, so that looks good from the sync schedule. Now, the only other thing here in the publishing tool that you really have to configure that can be very helpful is the email notifications. So what this is going to do is whenever there's a new third-party update that has been published based on your criteria and your sync schedule, it will automatically email you details about what new updates were published and are now available within your environment. So if we come over here and look at my email client that we're sending this to, here's kind of what those automated emails will look like. So we can see that the sync just ran. It completed about 3 minutes ago. We can see that we had Google Chrome published. Now, just take note, this is an older version of Chrome just because we have some tests running here where if we have time, I can show you what it looks like when we go from an older version and automatically update to a newer one. That's why we're actually looking at a little bit older version of Chrome, and that's intentional here so that we can see what a update will look like when we automatically update the application, for example. So this was actually one released a couple of weeks ago. We can see that that update title was directly clickable from the email. You can go directly to the vendor release notes based on that. We can also see that we include relevant details about the update. So we include things like the classification. So we can see that that Chrome and Java update were both security updates. They both had a severity level of critical, and they both had multiple CVIDs associated with them. So if we were to jump, we can click that CVE directly from the email from our tool, and we can get details about the vulnerability that was addressed within that Java update, for example. So I'm just going to copy that. And come back to SCCM. So since we chose to automatically sync our SUP using our tool, we can go ahead and refresh all software updates, and we can now see that both of those third-party updates are now coming in as a software update. We can, of course, see that we have the client scanning statistics, just like you would expect to see with any Microsoft update. We can also do things like paste any CVIDs that we got from those specific patches, and we do include this data within the description of each software update, so it's a searchable object within SCCM. If you wanted to quickly jump out in your all software updates and say, hey, here's a CVID we're interested in, and you could quickly get statistics about what updates and what your compliance looks like directly from the all software updates within your console here, for example. Now, from the deployment perspective, things aren't going to be any different for third-party patches once they sync in than any Microsoft updates. So for example, if you use searches and you manually create your update groups, you could do something like show me all updates from Patch My PC. So we're going to look at where the vendor is Patch My PC. And let's say that you only want to find it where it's at least required on one device. So you could, of course, use searches, create your update groups, and then deploy it using that mechanism. Now, if you're using automatic deployment rules, that's going to be the exact same process that you would be using with Microsoft ADRs as well. You could even include our patches directly in Microsoft monthly groups as well. But in this example, we just have a separate ADR that's saying, let's automatically deploy any non-superseded updates that are critical security or an update classification from Patch My PC. So this would essentially pull in all the third-party updates that you've enabled from our product and automatically deploy them using the ADR functionality of SCCM. So within that ADR, we also have all the same deployment functionality that you would expect to be using today. So for example, you can choose what collection you want to target. This is one of our 3 deployments going to a pilot group. You can choose your deadline when you want to force it to install. The same customizations, like do you want to show it in Software Center, do you want to abide by maintenance windows and restarts. So everything from the deployment perspective, once you've automated the publishing from our tool, and once you've configured the products and the sync schedule, for the most part, this is just a set it and forget it tool. You would just get emailed whenever new third-party updates have auto-published. The only time that you might have to come back into our publishing tool would be if you want to change any products around or change any of the right-click customizations around. So when that ADR ran, it did automatically.
Hey, Justin, we got a question.
Sure.
So if you're not a customer, can you get that email with the catalog updates?
Sort of. Yeah. So we do have a public email list.
Yes.
Well, it's a different email. It's very similar. So it's not going to obviously show you what's actually been published to your site. But if you want to get the email list that contains the same type of details that I'm showing in this RSS feed, for example. So when we've actually released updates, this is public. So you would simply come to our SCCM catalog page. There's a section here that says stay informed. Simply click the newsletter tab. Yep, so you can come in here. You can submit to be in the newsletter. You don't have to be a customer or anything. And then you'll basically get email notifications that will include the details shown here, which is a lot of the same things that you would get. It's just not going to be, this was actually published. Obviously, that would not be the case. It would just be letting you know, hey, these are available at Patch My PC. And then if you're like doing your own manual packaging, you could at least have some type of source to know when third-party updates are coming out. And that's totally fine. You can sign up regardless of whether you're a customer for that list.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So, when that ADR kicked off, it automatically downloaded the content into our deployment package. That got distributed to our DPs, and it made our software update groups that targeted our collections. Now, that's the software update piece of what we did here. Now, if you remember, we did also enable some application creation. So what we can see here is that we've got Chrome automatically created. Let me just go ahead and choose to deploy this. So I've just got a PowerShell script that basically is going to deploy this to all users just so we can see the software center experience on the client side in a couple minutes. But essentially what this did is it automatically created our application for us. If we come in here and look at the application content that we have, you can see that we kind of structure it in a way where we have the vendor, product, and then you actually have the vendor binary here that came directly from Google in this instance. Within Software Center, we are going to populate all the relevant details like localized name, documentation, privacy, description, keywords, and the icon so that you have a user experience that's going to just be, it's just going to look really well in Software Center, as well as have all the relevant fields that we think customers would like be automatically populated there as well. Okay, awesome. So from the client side, so this is one of the clients that were in the test collection. So we can see that the deadline was set for tomorrow, but since it was available in Software Center, we can of course kick these off directly in Software Center ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of Chrome and just reopen it really quick so that we can see that's just the standard Google page here. There's been no customization at all. We can also see on the shortcut, we can see that this is in fact on the public desktop for all users. So the two actions that we kind of had here that we made is to automatically delete public desktop shortcuts, as well as run a post-action PowerShell script to set the home page of Chrome. So I went ahead and kicked that process off. This is going to use all the same functionality that your SCCM client would be using today for software updates. So for example, you can see within the WUA handler log on the client side, it's going to show all the same details for third-party updates that you would expect to see with Microsoft updates. Now, in addition to the SCCM logging that would just be native, whenever there's a third-party update coming from our catalog through our publishing service, we also create one additional log in the CCM logs file called Patch My PC Script Runner. This is going to be a handler that shows any of the custom actions that you might have enabled within a third-party patch. So for example, we can see that Chrome was about to be installed. We can see things like command line arguments, any actions like running a post-action PowerShell script. If we chose to close the process, you could see any process IDs that we terminated. And since we also disabled updates, you can see any registry values that we're automatically setting for you to turn off self-updates within a product. So looking here, we can see that we actually ran the Google Chrome installer. We can see all the command lines right here, right? So we can see we had all the MSI exec commands, but we also included that logging parameter to that central network share. We can then see the update completed with an exit code 0. After the update was done, we then deleted the shortcut. We then set the registry values for you to turn off updates, and then we ran that PowerShell script as the post-action task. So if we come over here, we can see that the desktop icon is now gone. If we go ahead and launch Chrome from the Start menu, we can see that the PowerShell script automatically configured that home page for all users based on that customization here. If we come back to our main site server, we can go ahead and look at that UNC path that we defined for logging, and we can see that we have the host name of the device. In our case, it's just called SCUP client. This is a pretty old machine that we have here. But we can see that we actually have the verbose logging from that Chrome MSI installer as well. So if you're ever troubleshooting software updates not installing, you can kind of have a repository to really understand what specific actions may not be completing for the actual installers from vendors for any of the devices that you enable that logging feature on. Okay. All right, awesome. So that's Chrome. The next one, question?
You can write to local. Yeah, so we had one question, just confirming you can write to local. You don't have to use UNC,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So the actual default local path is going to be C Windows CCM logs, and then we create a subfolder called Patch My PC installation logs, I think, and that's going to be where any update logs are by default. Of course, you can change that to whatever local path that you would prefer to use if you don't want to use the UNC path.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, so for Java, the only thing that I'll kind of take note of is when we initially deployed Java, we did not disable updates. So we can see that just the default value of enable Java update is set in the registry. We can also see in the Java control panel app that the self-update feature is just enabled with the default actions. Within the taskbar, we can also see we're actually getting notified that there's a update available. So what's going to happen in this scenario, we did choose the process to auto close apps. So when we choose install, we're going to see that that control panel app on the left is going to automatically close, as well as the update notifier within JRE. And that's simply because we enable that option to automatically close any of those processes. And this is where in the log, we can actually see all that taking place here. So now we're currently running the Java installer. If we come back to that UNC path, we can see that we now have the actual JRE log showing up as well. So you can actually monitor kind of what's going on here on the actual client side as well. So it looks like, you know, it's currently the MSI has extracted out to one of the main EXE installers for the actual JRE's installer. So it looks like we've got an exit code of 0. So if we jump back to the client side, we can now see that we're completely done. And we also set the different registry values to turn off updates, and we can see that within the log file here as well. So we can see the update is now reporting successful. If we come back into the registry and do a quick refresh, we can now see that we turn the enable Java update key to 0. And we also created 3 different DWORD values to also completely turn off all notifications about self-updates for Java. So that looks good as far as the client side was going to go here. Here's what the Software Center experience would look like. So, you know, within the Software Center, it's going to show pretty much all the details that you would kind of expect. Things like the icon, description, version information. as well as all the additional documentation links that we would have included within there.
And you publish that icon automatically, right? When you create the app?
That's correct, yes. And just to be clear, this is currently one of the preview builds, but once it's released, we'll probably have a preview by next week. That would all automatically be filled once the application feature is generally available. Yeah, we're going to handle all that for you.
Sweet.
Okay, so that's kind of a good start here. Now, what I'm going to do on the back end, just to see if we can simulate a update, is we're going to switch over to one of the latest catalogs that has the latest version of Chrome. We're going to go ahead and change that, activate it, apply that. And in addition to in addition to Chrome, let me just go ahead and enable just a few additional products just so we can run this on the back end and kind of show you what we're going to have going on here as well. Let's say we want to do Firefox as well as an application. Apply that. And we're just going to go ahead and get a sync running and just leave that in the background. Now, while we're waiting for the new applications to be self-updated, I do want to cover some of the reporting aspects of our product. So since everything is being reported as a native software update, any of the native compliance reports that you would see within SCCM are going to report compliance for our third-party updates, just like they would report Microsoft update compliance. In addition to that, we do also provide a dashboard that you can upload directly into Config Manager using your SSRS instance. These were actually originally dashboards created by Gary Simmons. He has a blog post basically talking about how to create software update dashboards within SCCM. But what we did, we got permission to use this, and we've done some updates, including things like Windows Server. These are also free dashboards from us, so we have an installer that you can use to simplify the install process, automatically change URLs to match your environment. So if you just go to our site and search like free software update dashboards, even if you're not a customer, feel free to load these dashboards up into your environment. They report Microsoft compliance as well as third-party updates, and they're quite helpful. So what we have here kind of in the main dashboard, we're going to show you how many workstations and servers that you're managing. So we have about it's like 7 workstations, 4 servers. It then breaks out software update compliance by month for workstations as well as servers for the last year. We can click into each of these months, so we can see that for the month of June, we're the lowest compliance, obviously, because we've been publishing new updates. We had new updates come out yesterday. If we click into that report, we can see that we sort by the number of updates missing on the most devices. So this will include Microsoft updates as well as third-party updates. We do have a dashboard just for third-party updates if you only want to split it up there. So we can see things like, for example, that Chrome update that we saw that came out the other day. We can see that we have 3 devices that require that update. If we wanted to click directly into that update, depending on how deep you drill in, we may go to native SCCM reports where you can see like what are the 3 devices actually missing that software update within here as well. So you can break pretty far in as far as clickable objects goes within these graphs. In addition to that, there's just quite a few other charts and graphs like overall compliance for workstations and servers, how many clients are missing a specific range of software updates. So these are clients missing between 11 and 24 updates. So we can kind of see over here. We could, of course, click on any one of these devices if we wanted to see what are these specific updates that it's actually missing, for example. Okay. And then it's just similar type of graphs here for servers as well. So that's kind of the main one. We also have some that break up by only third-party updates like this one. Then if you want to choose a specific software update group, you can filter by that. Just a lot of helpful details to help understand how your patching is going overall. Now, in addition to our dashboards that you can install, of course, any type of solutions that you may be using external. So for example, this is the free Power BI dashboard available directly from Microsoft. So this will just give you general details about your overall Config Manager site. So things like clients, client health percentages, malware, there's all kinds of different details within this Power BI report. But what we're kind of interested in here is they do also break up and show software update compliance. So if we go ahead and jump to the update compliance tab within this Power BI report that you can load, you can see that in addition to all the normal Microsoft updates, like when we last refreshed this data set, we were missing some cumulative updates from last month, and we also had different Adobe updates, different Flash updates, Java, but we can see all these different third-party updates report the exact same way within any of these Power BI reports that you may be using from different sources, for example. Now, let's say that you wanted to filter for only critical updates, right? So we'll go from 158 updates missing to only 34. But when we filter by critical, these are going to actually be security updates released. So like usual, we can see things like Adobe Reader, Adobe Flash, Java, Camtasia, Citrix. So this would be updates that are actually critical with that severity level of them as well. All right, cool. Let me jump back over, see kind of what we have going on here, see if we have any new applications created. So we can see that when we ran our synchronization, we were currently at Google Chrome 74. So let's go ahead and do a refresh just to see if this updated automatically. So we can now see that we have Google Chrome 75. So we did an in-place upgrade essentially. So what that means is that we automatically updated the application content for you. So we basically downloaded the latest MSI installer from Chrome and then reset the source path within that deployment type of Chrome to point to the new path. And then we automatically updated your distribution points. So essentially what would happen is even if you're using the applications that are created from our tool within task sequences, collections, if you enable the default action where we're going to in-place update that application instead of creating a new one, you can basically ensure that you're always keeping up with the latest version as you're deploying new devices, for example. And that's something that was pretty important to us from an engineering side, is to make sure that we don't just create a single state within an application and then use our updates, but we're actually giving you the latest version that's always going to be the latest version when you're deploying devices here.
Quick question.
Sure.
For you.
Or maybe
Yeah.
What if that application?
Yeah, we're going to need to get that repeated.
He keeps the same application. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it needs
Justin.
to. I was just going to say it needs to be repeated. I didn't hear what the question was.
Oh, sure. So if you're replacing Google Chrome 74 with 75, if it's being referenced in a task sequence, it'll continue to function, I guess, because you're using the application ID is not changing. You're just updating the content.
Yeah, exactly. The actual unique ID of the application is going to be the same. Essentially, what's going to happen is we're going to update the deployment type. So what that means is that over here on the application sources, or where we actually download content, we're basically going to download the latest version. So here's the actual latest version that you can see that we just downloaded. So version 75 that came out today. So we basically stage that out, automatically download it, include any customizations like PowerShell scripts that you may have included, for example. And then what we're going to do is once we get the latest version downloaded, we just adjust the content path, basically say, hey, this now points here to the new content, and then we remove the old content reference. And then we would trigger a update content on your distribution points to ensure that it has the latest ones on your DPs by default. But yeah, they would essentially.
What if you wanted to keep like one version behind for some reason? Like, what if you wanted to still keep 74 around?
So
can you do it? You would do a new app, right?
Yeah, in that scenario, you would do a new application. So if we look at the application options here, you would say, I want to just create a new application in that scenario. So then you would have version 74 as well as 75. You would just have to remember if you did want to deploy the latest one, you may have to deploy that. We may include some things in the future, it just kind of depends on what overhead we would have, possibly doing things like creating supersedence relationships between different applications. Just something that might happen in the future. But today it would be, do you want to update the previous one, or do you want to create a new one, is essentially the options that you would have in those scenarios.
Cool.
So from that perspective, let's jump over here and let's, I'm not sure if we've got, there we go. So now we've got some policies. So here's just a couple of the other ones that we created and deployed to all users. So we can kind of see that happening. Let's say if I wanted to kick this off, I think we did actually have an older version of 7-zip already on here. So this should just kind of do an in-place upgrade, just using the app model. So if we look at what we have going on here, Uh-oh. Interesting. Yeah, so it looks like something's going on here. Let's do a quick look here. So yeah, this is early preview, so I was kind of expecting some hiccup. It wouldn't seem right if it just all worked perfectly fine when we haven't even released this feature yet. Let's kick off Chrome or Firefox while we're waiting. Any questions while we're waiting, just to see if we can get one of these guys to run?
Yeah, another question. So if you're updating a new version of Java, for example, yeah, well, does it uninstall the old one first and then install the new one clean, or does it do some type of upgrade in place?
Yeah, good question. So the vast majority of products will do a in-place update of the previous version, just using the native installer functionality from the vendor, right? So it would just do basically over the top is how most applications will function. There are a few products, specifically Java, where we can't directly use a uninstall using the vendor's product. In those type of scenarios, this is actually something that I may have forgot to cover, is we have this function called a patch my PC defined script. So if we look at Java, for example, so Java 8, I may have missed this tab. So we have this option called a patch my PC defined script. This is something that will be enabled by default. Essentially what would happen is, as a pre-action, we would automatically run a script that would remove previous versions of Java runtime to ensure that we only are left with the latest one. Now, if you wanted to opt out of that one, this is actually JRE is the only one that we use this functionality for. It was specifically to accommodate the licensing changes around Java 8 update to 11. It made it so some of the uninstall functions that we were using before wouldn't work. So now we have this option where we basically include a script within here to make sure that you're only at the latest one by default. The only other products that use these are actually some of the other Java products, some of the open source ones. So like the adopt JDKs. So these are ones where we include basically the same uninstall things, because they JRE is a little weird. Like by default, it just keeps all the old runtime. Just it's more of like a development thing. So we do ensure that we are getting rid of old versions, whether that's just native, which is what most products will do, or if we have to do a little bit more customization, we can include scripts by default to remove old versions. Is essentially what we're doing here.
Did that answer your question?
Cool. So it looks like 7-zip did go. We did also install Firefox using the application model. So just to kind of show you how that catalog could potentially look. Pretty cool. So we're really excited about this feature. I think it will probably be out, at least in preview, probably in the next week or two. Production, my target from the engineering side would probably be within the next month, maybe two. It just depends on what type of issues we may come across. Kind of hard to judge with the customers that we're about to bring into the preview program. So that's most of what I had from a demo perspective. I think that covered kind of the whole solution. So we pretty much set everything up that you would set up if you want to try it. From a trial perspective, you can certainly go out. You can download a public trial. There's no need to do any type of sign up forms. You can just download that MSI and you can sign up, or you don't even have to sign up. Now, if you want a 30-day trial that includes access to all products, there is a form that you would submit, and then you would get your own license ID. Now, if you just came in here and chose to do the public trial, it's just limited to a smaller set of products. That's the only difference between the public and the 30-day full access trial, is that there would be a smaller subset of products just intended for testing to make sure things are working. If you wanted to get a larger set, you would simply submit that trial form. The only other thing from a pricing perspective, I'll quickly cover that. We have basically 3 subscription options here. The first one's going to be basic. Very few customers are on this one anymore. What this essentially is using is a legacy catalog that only is compatible using Microsoft SCCM. So it's a very manual process to import and publish our catalog. If you want the full automation, whether that's using the publishing service that I showed you today, or whether you wanted to use the SCCM in console feature, that would require the enterprise solution. That's going to include all the patches with all the automation, as well as all the right-click customizations. And then the only difference between the Enterprise and Enterprise Plus would be the base installation feature where we can enable application installation and creation within SCCM as well. So that ranges from $2 to $3, or I'm sorry, $1 to $3 between those subscriptions per year per device. So pretty affordable from a pricing perspective. And there's even a comparison chart if you want to get more at the feature set level between these as well.
So just to make sure, that's $3 a machine per year, not a month, billed annually?
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. So it's kind of
Okay.
yeah. We're I think
All right.
I think we're one of
Making
the
sure.
I think we're one of the cheapest ones with regards to pricing as well as at least at this
Totally
point, as
agree.
well as functionality. I think we don't really pay a whole lot of attention. The only reason that I know that some of the other competitors don't do the application feature or base installs is because we saw a few at MMS. So yeah, that's the pricing, $3 per device a year if you wanted the top level. There's no maintenance fees, just subscription. If you don't like us after a year, you're not paying any type of upfront fees. It's just that flat subscription fee, and then if you don't renew, you're not losing out on any large upfront fees, for example.
Nice.
Cool.
Yes, I mean, is there any negotiations and pricing based on bulk
Yeah,
purchase?
sure. Yeah, so under our FAQs,
Okay.
we do have a topic here around discounts. So this is a pretty common one. So we have things like EDU discounts, nonprofit as well as volume. Volume is usually starts around 5,000 devices where we start giving volume discounts. We're priced pretty competitively just
Wait.
at the base level. So volume discounts are generally once we start getting a little more. We do plan to also give percentages on this website as far as volume and kind of what the
Okay.
rates would be as you go up. That's something that we've been planning on working on probably in the next couple of weeks. We want to be open about pricing. It just makes things easier and faster for not only us, but you guys as well. So within the next week or two, we're going to have like a standard rate where you actually will just see this up front of what you would get, and it just saves time on everyone's end. But yeah, there's definitely discounts available for volume.
Yeah, we have AT&T in the room with about 200,000 clients, so that was the source of the question. So
okay, gotcha. Yeah, so yeah, obviously that big, depending on subscription as well as terms. So we also have multi-year terms. That also can increase discounts as well. But yeah, we have quite a few pretty large customers. We also have quite a few customers that have public feedback as well. So if you look at our testimonials page, we have about 200 customers that have voluntarily provided feedback. Just did it. So yeah, you can go check this out. We have a lot of similar customers like an AT&T, retail
good stuff.
customers like yeah. So just check this out if you guys are kind of interested. There's a lot of feedback here just from current customers and kind of how they feel about the product. Let me see if
This is awesome. This is a really cool add-on that I've seen coming from Config Manager. That's. Oh, we got another question.
Sure.
So like Adobe DC Pro, would you recommend to not put Reader on the same machine as Pro?
I don't know. I don't know. Adobe, like we can certainly patch both of them if they're both there. Like I'm not sure from a functionality perspective if like the Pro would include all the functionality of Reader. I think it might, but to be honest, I don't really know. But we could patch both if they're both installed. So from a patch perspective, I don't think it really matters. But I don't think you would need Reader if you have Pro, because I think that they may include a Reader within the Pro product, but I'm not sure on that one.
Okay.
Let's see if see if we can get this Flash update created as an application real quick. Any questions while we're still kind of just waiting?
Any more questions, guys? We got another one.
Sure.
Two.
So the first is,
So what is Patch My PC's plan to handle Java updates moving forward?
Yeah, I should have covered this. We're already doing it. I'll explain exactly what we're doing here. So basically, when Java licensing, basically the last update, right? I think it was April. Let's see, offline content patch. So what we're doing is for licensed products today, the only update that requires it is going to be Java. What we're doing in that scenario, I think it's one of the tabs that I have open by default here. This is actually an interesting topic. There we, oh no, is that not it? Local content, I think we called it. Okay, here we go. So local content repository, we have this article here. I'll include these resources in the Teams chat as well. So currently the only products that require our local content feature would be Java Runtime and the Java SDK. So what happened when Java 8 update to 11 came out is essentially what we have within our publishing tool is we have this feature where in the advanced tab, you say where you need to download any products that are licensed. So any products that we're unable to automatically download due to things like paywalls, licenses, EULAs, things like that. And that's what we're actually using today for Java Runtime. So if we actually look at this directory, essentially what happened is we just pre-downloaded the JRE installers. Now, in the event that, let's say, a future version of Java came out, let's say Java 8 update to 13 or something, the way that that would work is when the publishing tool detected that there's a new update in our catalog for that, if we could not find the latest binary within your repository folder, you would actually automatically get emailed saying, hey, we couldn't find the Java runtime environment. It would give you the specific name of the binary that you need to download from JRE's website under their EULA and license portal. And what would happen is as long as you download that file and it exists, the next publishing sync would automatically inject that into the update or application using that content repository folder. So we actually supported this before Java 8 update to 11 even came out, just in preparation to start supporting that. Now, this is also going to open the door for products that we couldn't previously support because of EULA. So there's a few Citrix products, for example, that we couldn't add because there were no public downloads. This is going to start opening up us to add a few additional products where it would usually require a paywall. So this is essentially how we're handling Java today and any other licensed products that may come out in the future.
Have you ever considered changing your name?
No, that's a good question. It's funny that I get this a lot. So from a company perspective, we started off in 2011. So we were originally a product that essentially provided a free updater for home use. So we still have that product. It's used by millions of people today. So that's where the name came from. I know it's funny because I get asked it a lot. It's like, hey, you sound like you're a consumer. You're like a info commercials, things like that. And from my perspective, like the name, it just doesn't matter. Like I don't want to build a company based on a name. So this is the free program. You can use this to basically keep your home PCs up to date. So that's kind of where it started. So for me, it's not about the name. Like I think that if we're going to build a company, it's going to be around brand quality support. So I have no plans on changing the name, just because I don't think a name is going to be. I understand the concept. It's funny, we get this a lot. Like, hey, that name's kind of funny. Like I don't know if we're going to buy from them. So I kind of like that challenge. We just need to build a brand based around that. Not really a branding name, I guess. So it's going to be more around the product and what I want community to say about us. So yeah, no plans on changing the name ever. Not to say it might not happen, but there's no plans on changing the name.
Yeah.
Cool. What?
Yeah.
That was literally every single time you see that guy.
Yeah.
That was the headache, but I understand.
Sure. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. What other questions do we have?
Well,
NigerianPrints.com. Nigerian Prints patching my PC.
So not only did Justin do a great presentation, he also bought our PC or our pizza.com. Yeah, our pizza, Coke, and all that. So he sponsored this user group. But that was a cool demo. I had never really dug deep into patch my PC, but I have a discussion tomorrow with my boss now. So
Cool.
that was some good stuff. That really is cool.
Yeah, and if this was interesting for
We did. We had Paul record it, so nobody cuss.
Yeah, if you guys
Any shit like that.
if you guys do want to get like a demo with your team, if you want to take this more on like a company level, on our website, you can just come in here, choose live demo request, and then we could do a similar type demo with someone from our product group with just like your company if you wanted to see a bit more, get a more customized experience on how this might look within your environment. So that could be a next step if you guys are kind of interested in kind of a more in-depth follow-up specific to your company. And then of course the public trial, you could go download this, actually validate things are working like they said in the demo. It literally takes about 30 minutes to get both application or base installs as well as updates kind of working. And that's kind of how we wanted to design that, is just be a simple product that met a need for the SCCM community in general.
Great. Thoroughly impressed.
Okay.
Very cool.
Thanks, Justin.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining.